Ah, you see that? Bought this as a gift to myself. It was on eBay for literally 2 years, maybe, I think. At least that's when I noticed it. I wanted to get this because I drink so much coffee. This cup is from the 60s, 67, 68, 69, thereabouts.
Sock it to me?
Sock it to 'em, Tigers. That was a big thing they used to say back in the 60s from Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In and Flip Wilson and all those guys. Anyway, I wanted it really bad, and I thought, I'm going to use it on my channel to drink my coffee from. So I got it in the mail, and I was so excited. I pull it out, and it's really small. You know, back in the 60s, they were wusses. They didn't drink coffee the way we drink it now. I mean, we go after it. We go giant size keg type things like, whoops, stuff like this. That's how we drink coffee now. But it's still pretty cool, isn't it? I'm very happy with it. Okay, enough. Whole lot of stuff going on right now on YouTube. I know what's going on. I understand it. A lot of people saying, this is how I collect. This is how you collect. This is the way it used to be. This is the way it is now. There's a lot of that stuff going on. It doesn't matter. None of it. None of it matters. What matters is right now. What are we doing right now? We're having some fun right now. Collecting cards, selling cards, trading cards, ripping, breaking, whatever it is you do. That's what we should be talking about. I saw somebody actually have some dialogue on YouTube, and it was a person who was defending their modern era collecting against collectors who collect sets, types, that sort of stuff. And he said something that made me that said, "Hey, here's something that the big guy can have some input with and not draw a line in the sand." He said that he would like to start getting into collecting some vintage cards because they're too expensive. And to a certain extent, he's right. But when you can get a Bob Gibson from the early 60s for the same amount you can get a Corbin Carroll that you just popped open in a pack right now, I don't think it's that much more expensive. In fact, sometimes it's a lot cheaper. That's how you should be thinking about it. Also, he was talking about collecting sets. He goes, we can't collect sets. They're too big. They're too expensive. And that's not entirely true either. Now, there are some smaller sets. There's like Red Heart dog food. There's Wilson Wieners. There's, the 64 Tops Giants. There's a lot of cards out there that are smaller in size, but they're expensive too. And I mean, some of them are really expensive. But I found one. I found one that has great ball players from the 60s. It's affordable. It's small. And the beginner can get into it for the cost of a couple of blaster boxes. You can get some really good cards to start that collection of vintage cards and a vintage set. And it's the 1963 Fleer cards. Now, before we get into the 63 Fleer cards, let's just do a little quick history so you have an idea as to what these are. Now, have you ever seen these cards? These are the Ted Williams collection, the Ted Williams set from 1960. Now, they're pretty cool. They really pretty much highlight the splendid Splinter's childhood and his career. There he is with Babe Ruth. So you get two of those guys on the same card. Like I said, 1960, they were made by Fleer. These were also made by Fleer. Goose Goslin, Mel Ott. Here's a good one. Lou Gehrig. Here's one you might recognize. Babe Ruth. And then the next year, Cap Anson. Mickey Cochran. Connie Mack. And as you'll notice, these are guys that are retired or just good players from way back when. And these were the first cards that Fleer made for the collector. And one of the things that they were kind of relegated to do is, much like they are now, is they could only pretty much produce retired players and players that are no longer playing in the MLB. So they were kind of handcuffed. They could only do so much. But then, what happened was they started looking at some other cards, and they wanted to bust in 1963 what Topps was doing. And they did. Here are some of the wrappers and other goodies that go along with it. They went out and they snapped up a bunch of photographs of some good ball players of that time, signed them to a contract, which, you don't think about that when you're collecting cards, that all these guys that are showing up on baseball cards had to sign contracts, with that company. Some of them did it to the exclusion of the other company, to Topps or to Fleer or later Bowman or earlier in Bowman, that sort of thing. And some signed contracts with both. But there was some exclusivity. Truthfully, I don't understand it. I guess that's for another show. But the cards that they came up with, I think, look really beautiful. And they are a snapshot to the era in which these cards and these players were playing in, and that is the early 60s. Was they put together this kind of card right here. They look beautiful. Now, I'm going to show the entire set over 2 videos. The first half in this video, second half in the next video. It's kind of a big set, 63 cards, I think. That's what it was. What was it? 64? Like I said, it's a small set. But if we're going to talk about it in length, I don't want to go to 65 cards. It would take a long time. So anyway, and this card was part of the first series. There were rumors that there was going to be a second series of cards, and we'll get into that too, probably in the next video. Topps had a monopoly on these cards, and Fleer, they got back into the card battle, and just after winning that lawsuit, claiming that Topps' agreement violated antitrust laws, and Topps had lost their exclusive rights, and that just opened the door to other companies to help go ahead and just manufacture cards, including Fleer. I'm going to keep showing you this card because we're going to get started here in just a second, right into it. They put cookies in with these cards, like this. I'm not kidding you. I have dog treats that resemble that cookie. When I first saw this, I'd never seen it before, I went, that's not something I'd put in my mouth. My dog would, but no, not me. Anyway, later on, Topps went back to court, and they struck down the agreement that Fleer had, that they could go ahead, and they said, you're going to have to stop doing that. Instead, what they did is they got rid of the cookies, and they started putting in stickers and all sorts of other things, just other things inside the packs. And Topps says, hey, that's just a sham, putting in stickers in there and then selling cards and putting cards in with them. That's all a scam. And they said, okay, Fleer, you're done. That's what the court said. You're done. We're all finished. And we didn't see anything else from Fleer other than a sticker sets and things like that until 1981. And that was a glorious year. 3 major card companies. There was a lot of choice then. And that's another story, too. We'll do that in another video. Now, back to the 1963 Fleer cards. They did a nice job with the cards, as you can see. And what really makes them collectible is that there are 2 for sure, but 3, I'm talking about 3 short prints that make it a bit of a challenge. Not an expensive challenge, but a challenge nonetheless. And that's why collecting sets is so exciting. Because you don't just go out and buy, one thing. Okay, I'm all done now. Sometimes you got to go a little deeper. You got to get the variation, or you've got to get the short print, or you've got to get the subset, or whatever else is in that set of cards. Makes it a challenge, makes it fun. That's the whole idea of hunting for cards. I mean, if you're a modern day collector and you're out hunting for what? The hits? It's basically the same thing when you're hunting for cards for small sets. Now, there are 2 cards, I said before, Maury Wills and Joe Adcock are the 2 main short prints. But in relation with the Adcock card, there's also a checklist card that is also rare. That's the 3. A lot of people don't count the checklist as a short print, or somehow it's not collected. It's not seen as a third short print, but it is. So if anybody ever asks you, there's actually 3, not 2. And it's a lot of fun. And, the short print on the checklist, a little challenging because what did you do to a checklist? Well, at least back in those days, you checked off cards. So find one in mint shape with no writing on it. Yeah, there you go. There's your challenge right there. All right, let's take a look at these cards. I'm going to show you Steve Barber again. Now that you see the little yellow diamond down there in the corner, it showcases the player and position and that sort of thing. That's kind of reminiscent of several different card styles that Topps has had over the years. The player's name is down in the other corner. And the pictures, I have to admit, the pictures are a little flat, but that was kind of the way that they were taken back in that day. It wasn't anything that I would fault Fleer with. That's just the way it was. All right, here we go. Steve Barber. He was a member of the 1960s Baltimore Orioles Kitty Core pitching staff. That's what the press called it. They had some pitchers that were all 22 years old or younger, and it was including here Steve Barber, Milt Pappas, Chuck Estrada, and Jack Fisher and Jerry Walker. So that was something they did back in those days. They just stocked the old pitching staff with a bunch of young arms. And this is an interesting card, an interesting guy anyway. He was the modern Orioles pitcher. They had the first one that won 20 games. And back in the early 70s, they had 4 of them that won 20 games all in the same season. So they became legendary that way. But Steve was the very first modern one in that day. And by the way, he's the number 1 card in the set. The number 2 card is Ron Hansen. Now, this guy did something that only 7 other players have ever done in the MLB. On July 30th, 1968, Ron Hansen, playing shortstop in a game for the Washington Senators, caught a line drive from Indians catcher Joe Askew, stepped on second base, and tagged the runner coming from first. He's securing the 8th unassisted triple play in AL and NL history. Now, I know you've heard that's been done before, but when that got done back in 1968, it had not been done by anybody since 1927. Johnny Nguyen, a Tiger player, back in 1927. And his record for that unassisted triple play would last all the way until 1992. Ron Hansen, card number 2 in the 1963 Fleer card set. Okay, we just talked about the Kitty Core, one of them being this fella, Milt Pappas. In 1957, he went straight from high school to the majors and became a regular starter at age 19 years old. There are a couple of guys that did that back in the day. It could probably be done these days if somebody, I think about the guys that start on travel teams way back when they're 7 years old. They've amassed quite a bit of experience. They might be ready at age 19. He was the first pitcher known to be put on a strict pitch count. He was so young. And Milt won his 200th game with his mom and his brother in the stands. That's the way the story goes. And became the first to reach that milestone without ever winning 20 games. He won 200 games, but never won 20 games a season. He had to be around for a while to amass that many games. Card number 3, Milt Pappas. And before I go any further, these cards that I've just shown you already, you can get these for just a few dollars a piece. These are not $10 cards. So when you say, well, I can't collect a vintage set because they're too expensive, that's why I'm showing these. These are not that expensive. Even the star players, well, like Brooks Robinson, he is not that expensive either when you compare him to other cards. The human vacuum cleaner was best characterized by umpire Ed Hurley. That's what he used to call him. He played third base like he came down from a higher league. That's what they used to say about Brooks. And if you were playing in the AL back in the 60s and 70s, you'd be hard-pressed to get a ball past this guy. He just fielded everything. His career fielding average, his percentage, was .971, which means 19 out of 20 times when Robinson was involved in a play, the batter was going to be out. That's an amazing stat for a long time. from 1960 to 75, which was the time he won 16 Gold Glove awards and was voted onto the American League All-Star team 15 times. He was good, and he was good for a long time. Number 4 in the set, Brooks Robinson. I need to stop for a moment and enjoy a sip out of my new cup. Suck it to me. All right. Probably, I was going to say the best card in the set. I take it back. One of 2 of the best cards in the set. Willie Mays. Now, before the 1963 season, when this card came out, Mays had signed a contract worth a record-setting $105,000 per season. Now, that's the equivalent to $1,080,000 in 2025 money, which there's guys that get that much taken out in their taxes every year. Things have changed a lot. He's one of the greatest players ever to lace him up. That's the way I feel. He started playing baseball at 16. He played in the Negro Leagues, the Birmingham Black Barons, and he was only 16 years old. This card might set you back. You get a real good one in mint shape. You could probably pay a little over $100 for it. But again, how much are you going to pay for a gem mint Francisco Lindor with an autograph? Probably less. Here's a guy that I don't think anybody knows. Lou Clinton. Poor Lou. He was known for a little incident back in August 9th of 1960. They were in Cleveland, and Bill Monbouquet was pitching, and Vic Power was batting. Now, Vic hit a long drive to right field, and the ball just soared over the head of Lou. And he strained to reach it, but by missing it, the ball hit a pipe and then bounced right back at him. And right when he was taking a stride toward it, and the ball hit him right in the foot, right in the shoe while he was running, and he ended up kicking that ball out of the stadium, off of the playing field. So that's a home run for Vic Power. It never hit the ground. Lou was irate, and he went in and argued with that the ball hit the ground first, and the umpire was saying, no. He said it would have been a double, ground rule double that way, but the ump wasn't buying it. So Lou booted the ball out of the park, resulting in a 2-run homer. Vic got the homer. Lou, yeah, he got the assist. I would hate to have that follow me around for my career. Maybe just put a glove on your foot. Here it is, Bill Monbouquet. Now, this guy tossed a no-hitter back in 1962 when he was pitching for the Red Sox, but some folks may remember him for a rather historical game played on September 25th, 1965. Now, I read up on this just recently, and you might be amazed at this too. Sometimes simple things sneak up. The Red Sox were in Kansas City taking on the Athletics, and Bill was the starting pitcher for the Red Sox. And the 58-year-old starter for the A's was Hall of Famer Satchel Paige. Monbouquet threw a complete game for his 10th win, but became the final out, the final victim of Satchel Paige's career in the 3rd inning. Satchel Paige struck him out, and that was Satchel's final strikeout of his career. Card number 7. Here's another great player in this set. Think about this. Star power when you think about collecting this set. Carl Yastrzemski. This is a really great card to highlight the 1963 season because Carl's 63 season was pretty sweet. He batted .321, and that secured him the American League batting championship. He also led the league in doubles and walks, and his performance marked a significant breakthrough in his career. He made the All-Star team that year for the first time as well. You know what happened after that? He started playing like a man possessed, went on to win the Triple Crown later on. Carl Yastrzemski is card number 8. Here's another guy you might not recognize, and these guys aren't rookies, so it's not fair to say they're rookies. They're just average ball players. They're role players on their teams, and this is Ray Herbert. Ray Herbert had a remarkable 38-game consecutive scoreless innings. Let me say that over. 38 consecutive scoreless innings, not 38 games. He had 38 consecutive scoreless innings. That streak included 4 straight complete game shutouts. Complete game shutouts. That's amazing. He had 7 shutouts that year, which led the American League. You're going, why haven't I heard about him before? It's because he never repeated that kind of performance ever again. But that was a good year for him. The very year this card was produced. Card number 9, Ray Herbert. Another guy that kind of lands in the same park as Ray Herbert is Jim Landis. He was a decent ball player, but man, he just had such a dramatic, tragic life. He was a good fielder for the Chi Sox. He won 5 Gold Gloves, but the '63 season ended early. So the very year this was produced, it kind of ended early for him. He pled guilty to charges of tax evasion from 1956 to 1960. He was sentenced to a month in jail, and he actually had to spend that time in a hospital due to being sick. So he spent his jail term in a hospital. And unfortunately, just less than a year after that, being released, after just a short period of time, he had a heart attack while swimming in his pool and drowned. Yeah, tragic. Card number 10, Jim Landis. Here is card number 11, Dick Donovan. He's a fine young pitcher, nice prospect. The Boston Braves noticed him early and signed him to a contract right after his senior year. Jeff Jones, who was a scout, offered the contract to him, and he said, this is a quote, "He is the fireballingest pitcher he'd ever seen since spotting Bob Feller pitching in high school." Now, that's some high praise. Dick Donovan, card number 11 in the 1963 Fleer set. This guy, you're going to remember his son, because he's still around, Tito Francona. Here's a story. I remember, okay, let me just start with it. His real first name is John Patsy Francona. Who names their son's middle name Patsy? That's another story. He was a major leaguer for 9 different teams, and as a child, they nicknamed him Tito. At least his dad did. That's the story. His son, Terry Francona, which is who I'm saying is still around, I think he's managing somewhere, is also referred to as Tito. And now I remember a story, this is what I was getting at right at the very beginning, that Ernie Harwell said way back when I listened to him on the radio with the Tigers. He said that in 1961, Francona hit a home run during a spring training exhibition game. And John C. Cota, a City Park employee, went to retrieve the ball. And he discovered a body of Fred Burden, who was wanted by the Tucson police in connection with a shooting of former, and a death, he actually killed the guy, of a former prize fighter named James Cosillo. And, the guy hits a home run and just opens up a whole can of worms. Tito Francona, card 12. Isn't that a weird story? All right. Here comes a guy that, again, he's falling into that same box of unknowns, but still interesting, Jerry Kindle. Card number 13. He was a part of the University of Minnesota team that won the 1956 College World Series. They beat the University of Arizona in the finals of that tournament, and Kindle hit for the cycle. He's the only guy to do that in a College World Series until Christian Moore of Tennessee did it in the 2024 World Series. That's this guy's claim to fame. It's one of my favorite cards in the set. Frank Larry. He was nicknamed Taters and Mule, but the most famous nickname he had was the Yankee Killer, because he dominated over the perennial World Series champs, the New York Yankees. For a 2-year stretch from 1957 to 1959, he posted a 13-1 record against the Yanks. Oh, but in 1958, he owned the Bronx Bombers. He beat New York 7 times, and that had not been done since 1916. Larry compiled a lifetime record of 28-13 against the Yanks. I love this guy. Number 14, Frank Larry. All right, one of the things I wanted to kind of point out, you'll notice that a lot of the players here, and my mouth is getting dry, so let me soak it down with a little coffee. You'll notice that the cards are kind of grouped by teams. So we went through one there, with Boston players, and now we're about ready to go through a little run with Kansas City A's. Dick Howser being that guy to start it all off for us. Best known as the manager of the Kansas City Royals during the 1980s, and for guiding them to the franchise's first World Series in 1985. It's Dick Howser, number 15. Here's a guy that traveled around with a lot of teams. You could tell a lot of stories about him with each team. Not a superstar. A lot of stories, though. Jerry Lumpy. Now, he was signed by scout Tom Greenwade to play with the Yankees in 1951 as a shortstop. Greenwade is the same scout who earlier signed Yankee Hall of Famer Mickey Mantle. So the guy had an eye for talent. Jerry Lumpy. He played with a lot of teams. He played with the Yanks, and he played with the Tigers for a while, too. Another KCA. I like that. I like saying it that way. Norm Seaburn. Back in 1959, the Yanks were a team that was kind of cliquey. Guys kind of hung out with little groups inside, And the team just wasn't close-knit at all. And Seaburn, Bobby Richardson, and Tony Kubek, along with veteran Bobby Shantz, they were referred to by other Yankee insiders as the ice cream and popcorn set because they didn't drink, smoke, or swear. That's okay to be known for that, I think. Norm Seaburn, member of the ice cream and popcorn set. Card number 17. Here is a Los Angeles Angel. Don Lee. This is an interesting story. In September 1960, Lee gave up a home run to Ted Williams. That in itself, that's not that interesting. A lot of people did that. It was the first game of a doubleheader between the Senators and the Red Sox. Just 21 years before this rookie season, because this is what it was, 60 was his rookie season, Williams had a home run off Don's father, Thornton Lee. So Don Lee's dad, Thornton Lee, was also a pitcher with the White Sox, and Williams hit a home run off him as well on September 17th. So it was in the same month. In doing so, Teddy Baseball became the only player in Major League history to hit home runs off a father and son. I'd brag about that at Thanksgiving when I got the family together. Don Lee, card number 18. Albie Pearson, another Los Angeles Angels. He was kind of a small guy, but he was solid out in the outfield. And he played for those Los Angeles Angels. He was 5'5", and he came up with the Washington Senators. And the Chicago Tribune named Albie the American League Rookie of the Year in 1958. Now, the smallish fielder once said, "I've never had the satisfaction of looking an umpire in the eye." He also said, "I'm forever signing autographs to kids that are taller than he is." This poor guy. But he was a good ball player. If you've got any kind of older cards, you've been seeing this guy for decades. He played for quite some time. Here comes a guy that you're going to probably recognize, but not as a player. Bob Rogers. He's known as Buck Rogers back in the day. Not the space-age superhero, but the manager, a great manager. He led the Brewers, Expos, and Angels over his career. He was pretty good. Bob Rogers is card number 20. I want to go over it one more time. The cards you're seeing, other than the stars, could be anywhere from $3 to $7 a piece. You could put this set together with all those commons, $3 to $7. Some of them might get up to 10 if they're gem mint and they're sharp corners and that sort of thing. But this set is very, very affordable, and it's very easy. There's nothing that rare that you can't find somewhere. All right, let's talk about this guy. Leon Wagner. Fans in LA love Leon's style of play. They did. He was kind of flashy. When he got into the batter's box, Wagner typically went through a series of unusual movements and gestures and gyrations, and that all got him nicknamed Daddy Wags. And he was a businessman too. He opened up a local clothing store with somebody else, I forget who, and became part owner. And Leon came up with a creative tagline for the store: "Get your rags from Daddy Wags." He was another ball player that was around for a long time. A long time. Leon Wagner, Daddy Wags. Here's a Hall of Famer, Jim Cott. And not only was he a good pitcher that got him into the Hall of Fame, he could field his position. Sports writers voted him the best fielding positioner in the American League and recognized him annually, for 16 years, the longest streak ever by a pitcher. When he retired, Jim and third baseman Brooks Robinson were tied as all-time leaders with Gold Glove awards, each winning 16. He tied Brooks Robinson for fielding his position, with Gold Gloves. Greg Maddux later on, who was really good, he could really field his position, holds the record as of 2014 for total Gold Gloves. During his career, he won 18. Cott and Robinson remain the all-time leaders in consecutive Gold Gloves. Consecutive. Jim Cott. Here's a good little slugger. This is Vic Power. This guy had stones. He stole home twice in one game back in August of 1958. He caught the Detroit Tigers off guard, so they, weren't paying attention. They should have been. They should have been watching him more closely. But the second steal was a walk-off win. He was the first to turn that trick since 1927. Should have watched him. Card number 23, Vic Power. Another guy that is probably going to escape you as far as notoriety, Rich Rollins. Story about Rich Rollins is he got to play in the 1962 All-Star Game representing the Twins. Now, this is a story that Rich told. So he said that he and Mickey Mantle both got pulled from the All-Star Game in the third inning. Now, Rich tells it, he says, I go to the shower, and in the shower walks Mickey Mantle, and I'm flabbergasted. He says, hey, Rich, Mickey says this, are you going to the airport? And I said, yeah, I'm headed home. He goes, well, hey, let's go with me. I'll get a cab, and we'll go to the airport together. Now, Rich says, I never met him before. So we walked out of the game in the third or fourth inning, and after we took our shower, and headed home, right? So he gets in a cab, and never once did he ask Mantle for his autograph. He says he really regrets that. And he took a beating in the press later on for just walking out of the All-Star game. And he took a beating, but nobody ever mentioned that Mickey Mantle walked out of the same game and they went together. Excuse me for just a minute. Sock it to me. This card was the last card I needed for this set when I collected it back in 1981 or 82. I say that, I remember it well. I went to the very first, or maybe second, I'm not sure, but it was in Plymouth, Michigan, the National. I went to the National, picked up a few things. I was looking for this card. This is card number 25, Bobby Richardson. It's the only one I needed. I couldn't find it. Now, let me just pause for a moment. eBay was not around at the time. There was no internet. There was no social media. You kind of waited for the Sports Collector's Digest to come out and check the ads to see if this card existed, or you tried trading with friends, or you just did things through the mail. You just didn't go out and buy them off online. This took me over a year and a half, maybe 2 years, before I could find this card. Bobby Richardson, he played in 7 World Series, 36 games total. There you go. As a result, he owns a lot of the Major League records, 30 consecutive World Series games. He holds several World Series hitting records. He's one of only 4 players to have 11 or more hits in 2 different World Series. He had, the most? The most RBIs in a World Series, that's what it was, 12. And the most RBIs in a single World Series at 6. He has a total of 40 World Series hits, and that places him number 14 on the list of most World Series hits in a career. And that's through the 2024 season. Bobby Richardson, the final card I needed to complete this set. Paid $5 for it. Because you know, when you go to the National, sometimes you pay a little more. Sometimes you can get deals, but sometimes you pay a little more. And I remember the $5 tag because I didn't care what it cost. I wanted that card, and I was so happy because I completed this set. Ralph Terry, another great Yankee pitcher. Literally, he spent his professional career making history. Oh yeah, he was pitching, but making history. He was a member of the Yankees pitching rotation on 5 consecutive league championships from 1960 to 1964. That's something. His best season in 1962. He was named to his only All-Star team, going on to lead the American League with 23 victories. In 1962 World Series, he was named the most valuable player after posting wins in 2 of the last 3 games, including 1-0 shutout in the decisive Game 7. And he's also remembered for giving up a very, very famous home run to Bill Mazeroski that won the 1960 World Series for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, Terry also had a successful career as a professional golfer. He won the 1980 Midwest PGA Championship. This guy made history. Made history all the time. What a great little ball player. Pitcher Ralph Terry, card number 26. Here's a guy that I never heard of. And if you were to tell me, hey, do you remember him? I would say, no, I do not. Tom Cheney. It's not a whole lot I can tell you about him. At one point, though, he did strike out 21 batters in a 16-inning game against the Orioles back in September 12, 1962. Tom Cheney for the Washington Senators. Sorry I didn't have more. Chuck Cottier is better known for his contributions after playing as a coach for the Mets and Mariners, Cubs, Orioles, Phillies. Eventually, he was a manager for the Mariners. Card number 28. Interesting card right here. Jimmy Pearsall played 20 years of pro ball. He's best known for his nervous breakdown and hospitalization during his rookie season in 1952. Now, this event led to a best-selling autobiography and 2 movies. After his playing days, Pearsall began a long career as a broadcaster for the Chicago White Sox, and his buddy on his announcing team was Harry Carey. If you're interested, there's a whole bunch of play-by-play calls between him and Harry here on YouTube. This is Dave Stenhouse. He was a rookie for the Washington Senators back in the day when he was selected in 1962 All-Star team. Now, his son, outfielder Mike Stenhouse, went on to play a Major League Baseball career too for 5 years, as well as being an All-American baseball player at Harvard. Dave Stenhouse, card number 30. We're almost halfway through the set. Like I said, the next video will take care of the second half. And wouldn't you know it, that's where the short prints and some of the more interesting ball players are. So make sure you check that out. Here's Glenn Hobie. Most memorable game came against the Pittsburgh Pirates on July 30th. Glenn's wife, Sharon, was about 7.5 months pregnant and woke up that morning with a little discomfort. As the Pirates were taking a 1-0 lead against Glenn in the first inning, Sharon was giving birth to a little boy, Glenn Jr. And while the news reached Wrigley Field during the third inning, but the Cubs officials were reluctant to let Glenn know because they might think that he's going to lose his concentration. Manager Lou Boudreau finally decided to tell him, and when he came into the dugout after, the top of the fifth inning, after a lot of handshakes and congratulations, Glenn maintained his focus, went the distance with a 6-1 win, and scattered 7 hits to pick up his 10th victory of the season and pick up his first son, Glenn Hobie. How would you feel about that if they didn't tell you? Would that make you mad, or would you be thankful? I would like to know. Why don't you put that in the comments? Here's a great ball player, Ron Santo, Hall of Famer. But, long before he started patrolling the infield there at Wrigley Field, a routine physical before his minor league career started, the doctors diagnosed Santo with type 1 juvenile diabetes. At the time, the life expectancy of a juvenile diabetes patient was thought to be around 25 years old. Santo was 18. He educated himself about the disease and taught himself how to administer insulin. Taking an injection is not an easy thing. I know because I'm type 2. I have to give myself injections as well. He kept the secret until 1971, but by that time he was a 7-time All-Star. He's also the voice of the Chicago Cubs on the radio. He lived a good long life with a real bad disease. He was a real good ball player. Made it to the Hall. Ron Santo, card number 32. Gene Freese. This guy's a boomerang ball player. Played in Major League Baseball for the Pittsburgh Pirates twice, St. Louis Cardinals, Philadelphia Phillies, Chicago White Sox twice, Cincinnati Reds, and Houston Astros. I'm going to remember this guy for you. Any kind of my upcoming Immaculate Grid puzzles. Gene Freese, card number 33. This card represents the final card of this video, but the halfway point in the set. Excuse me. The year this card was produced, Veda put the smackdown on Cincinnati Times star beat reporter Earl Larson. Earl, who was not liked very well by any Reds players, suggested that during a little slump that Veda bunt more instead of trying to hit for power. And Veda confronted him, and Earl doubled down, so Veda took a swing at him, caught him in the chin. Earl filed assault charges against Veda, but later dropped the charges. Probably a good idea. He said that Pinson didn't hit him hard, not as hard as Johnny Temple, another Cincinnati Red, who he ticked off and took a swing at him. Sometimes it's just hard to be Earl Lawson. All right. Like I said, that's the first half of the 1963 Flair set. We'll get back to some more wacky stories with the next video. Now, like I said at the beginning of this is an affordable set. If you're going to collect a small vintage set, this is a great starting point because some of the other great ones, like I said before, Red Heart Dog Food, Wilson Wieners, even Red Man Tobacco, stuff like that, they're small sets, but they're very expensive. I guess Red Man Tobacco's not too bad. Okay, you're going to see bigger stars, and there is a guy in there that is a rookie. Maybe. We'll see what you think. And, so catch Cardboard Meditation in just a few days to see the second half of this. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave them in a comment. I'd appreciate that. Your input means a lot to me. It does. I'm serious. Talk soon.
Cardboard Meditation helps set your mind right. Thank you for watching. Show us your appreciation by clicking the like and subscribe button. Ring the bell while you're at it so you'll know when we upload a new story.